Chapter 78, Living Arrangements. Antony's POV. No! For a moment, everything was silent but for the hissing of the waves. Marcus's eyes narrowed, and Antony steeled himself. He's going to kill me. He's going to end our relationship. Probably both. A quick glance showed that Antony had everyone's attention. Theodora was still at the wheel, but her eyes were wide and the corners of her mouth were turning up a little. A cluster of Marcus's friends, Portia, Albina, Livius, a few others, were regarding him with their eyes wary and their lips pressing tight. Thaddeus gawked openly up at him, still tangling around Marcus's boots. Cloelia was shoving her way through the crowd, eyes wide. A heavy step on the stairs drew Antony's gaze to where Sinisa seemed to be rushing below decks. No time to worry about what he was doing right now. Hanyu was perhaps the only person who didn't seem to be at all surprised by his refusal. The young man was smiling peaceably over at him as though he had never expected any other outcome, his hand still patting reassuringly at Asao's back. Whatever Antony had done to earn that calm faith, it wasn't enough. For his part, Asao stayed folded into his bow, the shaking of his fingers on the deck the only sign that he was at all affected by any of this. At that sight, a sudden memory crashed through Antony's mind with the force of a seer's vision from a story. He remembered standing with his brother and sister before their father's throne, being publicly berated for something or other, and Titus's little hands trembling just like Asao's were doing now. Antony couldn't recall a time when he and Claudia hadn't known how to control their bodies, but Titus had never managed to conquer that one little quirk, even as he reached adulthood and joined his siblings' mad schemes. Whenever he was upset, his fingers would show it. Antony had always wished that he and Claudia could stand on either side of their little brother and hold his hands so no one would see them shake. A ghost of the old impulse rose up in him as he looked at Asao's thin, bandaged, trembling fingers. I have to do this. I should have done it long ago. He gathered his courage, returned his gaze to Marcus's suddenly unreadable face, and continued. Thaddeus didn't attack you, he just intercepted your kick, he snapped. I'm not going to punish him for it. You're the one who is attacking someone, and Thad was right to stop you. But that's Marcus's own attendant, isn't it? Portia asked. Antony didn't dare take his eyes off Marcus's face as he answered. Yes, he is. But as Marcus is well aware, I've already warned him privately that he was being too rough with his attendant. This was hardly roughness, Lord Antony, Marcus replied, his expression less enraged than curious, at least for the moment. You don't think kicking him counts as roughness? Thaddeus demanded. He had pushed himself up to a sitting position, but he kept his little round body between Marcus and the humans. That's dangerous! Antony nodded. He's right. Humans are too fragile for that kind of thing. It was just a kick, Marcus groaned, rolling his eyes. I'm allowed to discipline my own offering. The oaf ran right into me. You didn't give him the chance to stop, snapped Thaddeus. Anyhow, you're twice his size. He didn't do you any harm. The war chief glowered fiercely at the smaller vampire, but Thaddeus didn't shrink from his gaze. That doesn't matter. He's mine. I can punish him if I like. It's my right. Really? Antony tried to keep his voice cool and lazy, even when the smoldering glare was turned to him. This is what you want to pick a fight over? Your right to terrorize a defenseless human slave? Surely you can find a more rewarding hobby. Maybe derision wasn't the wisest tack to try, but appealing to Marcus's better nature clearly hadn't worked. Why not try making him feel foolish instead? Nevertheless, it is my right. Marcus smirked confidently over at him, and Antony could hear the unspoken part. Nice try, Annie. Fine then. If Marcus wanted to talk about rights and rules, that was exactly what they would do. He just wished his damn back would stop hurting so much. And it is my right to expect obedience from my war chief, he said, trying for his father's tone of steely command. I've already ordered you explicitly not to kill this man. You've been brutalizing him since you got him, and none of my warnings seem to have stemmed your behavior. It's gone too far. This is not what our attendants are for. Marcus scoffed. Are you trying to tell me what to do with my own things? Yes, that is exactly what I did. I gave you my orders. Are you saying you plan to disobey me? By killing him? It was just a kick, for fuck's sake. I'm not going to kill him, Lord Antony. He was, though. Antony had no doubt that this was exactly what he had intended to do. Marcus had planned to murder Esau. His lover would need time, so much more time than Antony had anticipated, before he would truly amend his treatment of the humans. Antony could see that now. More unfortunately yet, he could also see that Esau could not be present for that learning process. Marcus is never going to forgive me for this. If he sent Esau back with Marcus today, the man would die. Even if Marcus restrained himself from killing the offering outright, Esau would long for the mercy of a quick death within a week. Hanyu would never forgive Antony if that happened. For that matter, either with Theo, or Felix, or, if he were being honest, Antony himself. His hands shake like my baby brother's, and the best person I know adores him, and he's afraid of ladybugs, and he was supposed to be mine, but I wanted to paint a picture. I owe him. There was still time not to do it, still time to leave this as a scolding that wouldn't really change anything. He could still choose not to open his mouth and say it. He could... That's right. You're not going to kill him. In fact, you're not even going to touch him again. Antony raised his voice before the growing tide of shocked whispers could get out of hand. I'm sick of you defying me on this point, Marcus. I'm confiscating him. I must have misunderstood you. Marcus's voice was smooth and pleasant, and his smile showed his dimple, but Antony still shivered. No, you didn't. He tried to keep his own voice level. I am confiscating your attendant. You may drink from the offerings in the barracks with one of the guards present. Hanyu, take Esau to my rooms. He'd almost slipped up and said R. Luckily, neither his impulsive offering nor his own fool tongue cracked his veneer of sternness. Hanyu bowed in his direction with a flawless grace, and not the slightest hint of a smile. Of course, my lord, he said gravely. Your servant is grateful for the opportunity to obey. It was so strange to hear the priest talk in Hanyu's voice that Antony couldn't help feeling like this was all some mad, awful dream. Still, dream or not, he was grateful for the clever young man and his understanding that strict propriety could only help to bolster Antony's position right now. Antony knew he didn't deserve this wonderful man's trust, but he'd be damned if he wouldn't at least try. As part of his effort at deserving Hanyu, he pushed down his fears of what this change would mean. Hanyu would hardly want to spend so much time with a grouchy old monster who made him cry too much now that he had the alternative of his best friend. Esau, too, would need kindness as he adjusted to these changes, and if there was one person ill-suited to provide kindness, it was Antony. He would be of no use to either of them. No, the two childhood friends were a long-solved equation, fitting perfectly together with no need or desire for an outsider. There might be room for 3 in that bed, but somehow Antony just couldn't picture it. It didn't matter. What mattered was Hanyu, and this was sure to make Hanyu happy. All Antony had to do was ensure that he got it, even if he had to fight Marcus right here on the deck. And with Theodora, Julia, Cloelia, and Thad on his side, maybe it wouldn't come to that. He could hope, anyhow. Marcus made no move to stop the humans from getting up. When he rose, Hanyu also pulled Esau to his feet. Antony wished he could get a glimpse of Esau's expression, but the man's head was bowed so deeply that his chin pressed into his collarbone, and his hair obscured his face. Was he frightened? Upset? Simply dazed? It was maddening not to know. The two humans headed towards the stairs, Hanyu's arm around the smaller man's shoulders. The crowd of vampires parted for them like torn fabric. Antony would have to deal with all that later. Right now, he had plenty to keep him occupied. Quailing internally and with his back on fire, he returned his gaze to Marcus. That strange curiosity was back on Marcus's face. Somehow, it unnerved Antony more than the fury he'd expected would have done. He could almost feel his lover thinking, calculating, and he no longer knew what figures Marcus would arrive at. Anything could happen next. Anything at all. I'm going to fucking die.